Hi, welcome. This is Jay Early, and this is the second video in the series, The Power of Parts Work. So let's get right to it. So in this video, you're going to learn about the power of using parts work to work on your issues. And it's going to include a summary of the step-by-step process of internal family systems therapy, IFS, for healing your childhood wounds and changing your behavior. So to start with, you choose a part to work with, which we'll call the target part, which is usually a protector. You access that part experientially, and I'll show you how that happens in a minute. You get into self, which is, as I mentioned in the last video, is that core part of you that can do the internal healing work. You discover the positive intent of the protector you're working with, and you develop a trusting relationship with it. So let's see how this applies to Sandy. Remember in the last video, Sandy wanted to work on a video project, but she kept getting busy with other things instead. So Sandy decided that she was going to work with her busy part to see if she could change it, because that's a protector and it was getting in the way of what she wanted. So she could feel the push to be busy in her body, and she could sense, when she thought about those situations, she could sense inside herself a desire to kind of avoid the task, the video project. And she actually got an image of the busy part looking as you see here. So that's how she experientially accessed the busy part, because IFS is an experiential therapy. You don't just analyze your parts, you actually go inside and contact them. And so, but before you can actually work successfully with a part in IFS, you need to be in self, which means you need to be separate from the part, and also you need to be openly curious and interested in getting to know it. So that's what Sandy did. I won't go over the details. There's some cool ways to do that in IFS, which I won't bother explaining in this short video. But Sandy, as you can see, got herself to the point where she was openly curious and interested in finding out what was going on with the busy part. And so as she got to know it, she asked the busy part questions and listened internally for its answers. And it told her that it didn't want to do the video project. And it told her, with more questions that she asked, it told her that it was afraid that if she did the project, she would be more visible in the world, and that would lead to her being ridiculed. And so Sandy discovered, through this, that it was actually protecting the embarrassed child part, which we talked about in the last video. And so Sandy now understood what this busy part was trying to do for her. And even though she didn't like the fact that it was causing her to procrastinate, she could appreciate it had a positive intent and express that to the busy part, which helped the busy part to trust Sandy. And then the next step is that we understand in IFS that it's difficult for any protector to change unless the exile or exiles it's protecting are healed. And so therefore, once you get to know a protector, you don't right away try to get it to change. Instead, the next step is to actually work with the exile it's protecting. And so you get permission from the protector to work with, and before you work with any exile, you want to get permission from any protectors that don't want you to do that, because otherwise they're liable to sabotage your work with the exile once you get started. So in Sandy's case, she asked the busy part if it would give her permission to work with the embarrassed child, and it agreed. And so Sandy accessed the embarrassed child experientially by feeling it in her body, getting an image of it. You can see an image there, and feeling its emotions. And so now Sandy has switched her experiential attention from the busy part to the embarrassed child. And so what do you do with an exile? You go through a series of steps First of all is the step of witnessing. First of all, you get to know the exile. You find out more about it, what it's feeling, what it's been through. You connect with it from self. But then you basically want to witness what happened in childhood to cause the exile to take on the burden it's carrying. And a burden is a painful emotion or a negative belief that an exile takes on as a result of some painful or harmful childhood situation, incident, or relationship. So in the case of the embarrassed child, Sandy got to know it experientially, connected with it. She asked the embarrassed child to show her what happened in childhood to cause it to be carrying shame. And it showed her those incidents when she was embarrassed by those kids. And so Sandy could know that and also could sense what that was like for this child part of her. So then there's a series of steps in IFS for healing an exile, which I'll just go over very briefly. First of all, you reparent the exile. You give it a corrective emotional experience instead of the one it had as a child. You may retrieve it and take it out of the past and bring it into the present. You help the child to unburden the burden it's carrying, to release the pain, in this case, the shame, and then you go back to the protector and see if it can now let go of its dysfunctional role, because the exile is okay now. So let's see what happened with Sandy when she did that. So in her imagination, Sandy goes back and enters the childhood scene with the embarrassed child and the kids that are ridiculing her. And in her imagination, she protects the embarrassed child from those kids. She stops the kids and says, hey, what are you doing? This isn't fair. This is not a nice way to treat one of your friends. And she stops them. And then she reassures the embarrassed child that it has nothing to be ashamed of. The kids were just doing what kids do. But to make it absolutely safe, she takes the exile out of those painful situations from the past and brings them into her heart, actually, is what she did. And then she helps the embarrassed child from there to actually release the shame it's been carrying. And then she goes back and checks with the busy part and makes sure the busy part is aware that the embarrassed child has been healed, its shame has been released, and the embarrassed child is now feeling good about itself. And the busy part says, wow, I guess if that's the case, I can now let go and let you do the video project. It seems like maybe it's a safe thing to do now. So that's the way it worked, and that's the way it generally works with IFS work. So the goals for IFS work are to transform each part so it can be in its natural, healthy role, so that the embarrassed child, in this case, I'll get to that in the next slide. And then you want to have each part be able to trust the self to lead, and you want the parts to cooperate with each other. So what were the results of Sandy's work? The embarrassed child now feels good about herself. And the busy part now only takes on tasks when they're needed, not in order to avoid the video project. And as a result of that, the pushy critical part can now relax because it doesn't have to push Sandy to do the project, because Sandy is just kind of doing the project on her own because she doesn't have any resistance from the busy part. So that's that. And that completes this video. In the next video, I'm going to actually lead you through a guided meditation where you get a chance to work with one of your protectors.